The following is an excerpt from my Snapchat stories of me exposing Persona 5 and some of the occultic themes surrounding the series as a whole. The video was rendered strange, so the audio chops at points, but no worries, I've provided subtitles when needed. If this interests you, and you want to know more about anything I've said here, add my Snapchat. Oh, and as fair warning, there are spoilers for Persona 5 contained in the video. Just to let you know. Alright, so there's something I want to show you. Every now and then I play this game called Persona 5, right? And the Persona series has been one of my favorite games for a while, but there's some overt stuff in it that's pretty off-putting, to be honest. But so basically what is Persona about? Persona's usually about, in every game it's different, but it's usually about teenagers who gain this power called Persona, and then a Persona is like your soul manifesting and coming out of you to protect you from these creatures called shadows, right? And every Persona in the series is usually kind of like named after, or it takes after like different gods and different religions around the world, right? This Persona's name is Messiah, right? And it has a description. It says, Messiah is a persona of another story. He appears before Judgment Day to save the virtuous. He is a universal figure appearing in myths around the world. Many stories involve his death and rebirth, right? So for the longest time, Messiah was probably one of my favorite personas from Persona 3. Because essentially, I mean, they don't outright say it, but he's supposed to be modeled after the image of Jesus, right? Well, no, that's what I thought, right? That's not the case at all. This is what I want to show you. It doesn't matter what you play or what you watch. There is always a satanic connection to it, right? And the way that I know this is because when you have the eyes to see and the ears to hear, these things become very obvious. So there's this process in the game where you can turn a persona into a weapon or an item, right? This armor, he turns into this armor with a pentagram on it. You get what that means? So he turns into this armor with a pentagram on it. And if you don't get what that means, like, the pentagram is essentially the staple symbol for all of Satanism, and it's been that way for a little over a couple hundred years. And the pentagram in itself has a huge history. It's basically the sigil, or like the symbol of this ancient demon called Baphomet. And Baphomet became the symbol for Satan, or the devil himself, being called the scapegoat, because in Satanism they view Lucifer or Satan or the devil as someone to have pity on because, oh, woe is me, he got kicked out of heaven, that sort of thing, right? It's hella satanic. That's what the pentagram really is all about. There's more levels to it than what I'm saying, but that's really what it's all about. And like, more than that, so a pentagram being so deeply tied to Satanism, the armor that Messiah turns into is a pentagram. So what I'm trying to say is, hold on, let me go back to the image of supposed Messiah. All right. What I'm trying to say is, though, this is not Jesus. This is not Messiah. The fact that he turns into an armor with a pentagram on it, it basically means it's the Antichrist. It's a representation of the Antichrist. And in the Bible, it says the Antichrist will come in the form of Jesus. He will pretend to be Jesus. He will claim to be Jesus. He will claim to be God. And he will be worshipped, and he will be peaceable. He'll come looking angelic, kind of like this persona. And that's kind of like the metaphor. It's not outright said. It's in such a subtle way that a normal person wouldn't even notice this. But to wrap this up, the Bible says that for a short time, Satan is pretty much like the god of this world. And God gave the world over to him for complicated reasons that I can't quite all explain right now. But it's basically a plot to weed out who's good and who's bad, that sort of thing. Right, but the very fact that Satan rules over this world, that's why you see so much influential media surrounding demons and demonic plots and like really just dark, whether it be killing, murder, sexual stuff, whatever it is. This world is dark and we can't really, like, avoid that fact. And so essentially Satan's, even though it's subtle, his paws or his mark is on every little slice of our media. Doesn't matter how small or how big, movies, television, cartoons, you can find some connection to something satanic. And mind you, this is a game, really, all the way from Japan, right? And the fact that you could just find subtle stuff like this in everything, no matter where it is, no matter where you sampled from in the world, is proof enough that Satan rules over everything here. That's the reason why this persona can't be Jesus. Because literally, if Satan rules the world, he's always making a mockery of God. He's always trying to go out of his way to stomp on God's name. He's always trying to make a mockery of Jesus Christ himself. And so, you know what makes this even worse? Let me actually show you, if I can. Let's see. Hold on 1 second. So I'm actually going to go ahead and fuse this armor for a second. And then I'll get rid of it. Oh, never mind. I can't fuse it, but let's see. Let's see if I can fuse this. You know how you get these items? You execute them. You literally murder or kill your personas. And the fact that you're putting Jesus in an electric chair. This isn't Jesus. This is a different persona, but all the same, it's such a mockery. It's really a mockery. But now, do the people who make these games, who make all our media, the movies, the television, whatever, right? Do the directors and the onboard staff always know what they're doing when they put this stuff in games? Not necessarily, actually. Because if Satan does, in fact, rule the world, really, he can influence people subtly to put these demonic things in games and whatnot without them even noticing. So it's not even necessarily the people's fault every time. But this is just one thing to look out for. It's something that exists in all our media, and whatever you watch, whatever you play, yeah. And what would be the purpose of putting satanic ideology and symbolism into games, movies, television, and cartoons? Really, there are three main purposes that I can think of. The first purpose would be to slowly, I know this sounds weird, but the purpose would be to slowly get people to, in a way, love Satan and idealize him as some sort of figure or a hero. The second reason would be to slowly taint people's ideas of justice and true ideals of good and evil. Yeah, and that really goes back to corruption of, what is right and wrong, essentially. Third reason that I can think of really is that if people start thinking like this, to prepare them for this thing called the New World Order. And I don't have all the time in the world to explain what the New World Order is, but essentially it was this plan developed by a massive corroboration of every wealthy family and massive conglomerate company in the world that you could think of, created centuries and even generations ago. A plan to enslave most of humanity and get us to think and act a certain way, so that the wealthy people of the world would have the world to themselves. That's what the New World Order is. And the ideal citizen for the New World Order is someone who has compromised morals and values, someone who can only think as they think. People like Christians are essentially a problem to these people. And that's why they antagonize God. That's why religion is spit on so much in this world. That's what it's all about. And the fourth reason, kind of the same as the third reason, is to prepare people for the Antichrist. And like I said, the Antichrist will be charismatic and the world will love him. He will claim to be Jesus, but he will not be Jesus by any means. And all this is biblical. This is prophecy. The Bible, pretty much predicts the future. Even the time we're in right now with, COVID-19. All of this is talked about in the Bible. And it's all leading up to a climax, like in a story, But all that aside, yeah, this is really to get people to think in this way, to have this mindset, is to prepare them for acceptance of the Antichrist. He won't be the real Jesus, but he'll deceive everyone into believing he is. That's what it's about. One last thing, while I'm on the topic, let me just expose this game just a little bit more than I have. So Persona 3 is my favorite Persona game, and it was probably my favorite game for a long time. But reason being, the main character basically sacrifices himself. He becomes like a Jesus-like figure to sacrifice himself to seal away death, because in the game, at the end, spoiler, death can't be killed, so he has to seal away her power. Is this death god in Greek mythology called Nyx, or whatever, the Queen of the Shadows. And so the main character becomes Jesus and seals her away. That's the plot, the end of Persona 3. That made Persona 3 my favorite game. Persona 5, this one, Persona 5 Royal. In this game, not to bore you, but this all has a point. So Persona 5 compared to Persona 3 takes a completely different twist than Persona 3. Basically, so my first playthrough, I didn't even know this till I got to the end of the game. Well, my problem is with the ending. So in Persona 5, the main character uses this persona. Every person has their own personal persona, but the main character in every game can use multiple. But this is his main persona, the one that he manifested. So its name is Arsene. Arsene is supposed to be based off of a gentleman thief, kind of like Sherlock Holmes. And essentially it's the Japanese version of Sherlock Holmes. Nothing too suspicious about that, right? It's just a persona based on a fictional book, right? But at the end of the game, there's so many things wrong with it. There's a lot wrong with this game, and I don't even know how to put it into words, but I'm gonna try my best. Alright, so spoilers for anyone who actually wants to play the game, or anyone who would be interested in playing it. But basically, at the end, you fight, get this, right? You fight a corrupted version of God called Yabalith, or Yabalith. And Yabalith, this is why this game is satanic. And no normal person would pick up on this. But this is the satanic ideology. So in Satanism, they believe that God was evil in the garden. And the reason why he told Adam and Eve the reason why he told them not to eat the apple was because he didn't want them to gain power, or something stupid like that. That's what the Satanists believe. And then they believe that Lucifer tried to liberate humanity and yada, yada, yada. That's their belief, right? And so, I mean, there's many different versions to Satanism, and I don't want anyone to confuse that. But the three main sectors of Satanism that I can classify it into, you have traditional Satanists who actually do like sacrifices and kill animals and babies and all that stuff. Then you have the Luciferians who worship Satan when he was an angel, back when his name was Lucifer. And then you have the New Age Satanists who don't claim to believe in Satan, they just use him as like an ideal figure. None of that is important. But what these people believe altogether is that Lucifer tried to liberate or give power to Adam and Eve. And in the Bible it says, this is what Satan said to Adam and Eve. He said, if you eat from this fruit, you shall surely not die, but in fact you will become just like God. That was his lie to humanity, that if we ate from the fruit we could become as gods. When in reality, eating the fruit of knowledge did so many things to us. We didn't become like God. In fact, before we ever ate the fruit, we were more like God than we had ever been even now. Before eating the fruit, there was no such thing as death. There was no such thing as pain. The Garden of Eve was like our own personal heaven, but for humans, basically. And Satan tricked Adam and Eve into eating the fruit so that we would destroy ourselves. That's basically what happened. That's the truth. But the Satanists believe that Lucifer was trying to free people from God's oppressiveness, I guess. That's their whole belief, which is really stupid when you put everything into context, but whatever. And, yeah, to make things even worse, though, getting back to the game, essentially, Yabalith represents an evil version of God. And this persona, our sin, so in every Persona game, by the end of the game, the main character gets what's called an ultimate persona. It's an ultimate version of their very first persona. Our Sin's ultimate version, right? So his first version, he's just a detective, a Japanese detective. Even so, this design looks really satanic. You got the horns, right? You got the horns. You got black wings and a top hat. He looks like a devil. He doesn't really look like a detective. That should have been a red flag right there. His ultimate version, I kid you not, his ultimate version, the ultimate version of this persona is called Satanic. Satan, but in a different language or a different way of saying it. So, in the final battle of this game, you have the main character's ultimate persona in a cutscene appear as like a Megazord version of his persona. He appears with a gun in his hand and shoots God in the head. Yes, I kid you not. That's the end of Persona 5. He literally summons Satan as a persona and shoots an evil version of God in the head. It doesn't get any more blasphemous than that. It really doesn't. It's really... No one picked up on this. I haven't heard too many people talk about this. But because of that reason, Persona 5 is literally my least favorite of all the Persona games. And there's even more messed up stuff in the Shin Megami Tensei series altogether that I could tell you about, but ain't enough time for that. And like, to explain what I'm saying though, to go back on that, Shin Megami Tensei was the first series that, it was like an RPG series that developed out of the 90s. And then Persona is like a sister series that became its own thing. It was a spin-off at first, but it's an entire own separate thing, but it's still connected in some ways. But yeah, you can research in the Shin Megami Tensei or Persona on your own and find all these weird, messed up connections yourself. But basically, the reason why I'm telling you this, am I trying to get you to believe what I believe? No. Am I trying to persuade you or convince you into something? No. I truly just want to warn you. I want to warn you that while you may not believe everything I'm saying, while you may not believe that there's such a thing as an Antichrist, while you may not believe that any of the events I'm talking about will ever happen, cool, whatever, I can accept that. But the day you see that a charismatic world leader takes over the world and is loved by everyone, do not say I didn't warn you. Games like this are preparing people to accept the Antichrist. And the Antichrist from there will initiate the end of the world, basically, once he appears. But, yeah, that's all I'm trying to tell you. I don't want anyone to be deceived, because it'll be very hard to tell the truth. It'll be very hard to see things for what they are when these things begin to happen. That's why I'm telling you early on, right now, what's going to happen and what's going to go down. I don't want you or anyone else to be deceived. That's why I talk about things like these. Yes, to the average person, might sound loony, might sound crazy. Cool, I've lived a very different life than you. That's all I can say. However, I know what I'm talking about. And I'm trying to warn you right now that if such a person does appear in the world, an Antichrist, don't fall for his tricks, don't fall for his lies. His goal, literally, if such a man appears, his goal, literally, is to deceive the world and lead them into hell. And to kill as many people who get in his way. That's what he will do when he shows his true colors. That's who the Antichrist will be. He might seem nice when he appears. He might seem like the perfect man. But he is not Jesus. Jesus is the only one who can save us. The only one who can rectify our wrongs. The only one who deserves our love.